She's the quintessential 90s sweetheart, graceful, charming, and unforgettable. Feeling the beat. She's the quintessential 90s sweetheart, graceful, charming, and unforgettable. In a career spanning over 30 years, Sonali Bendre has carved a niche few have occupied with such quiet dignity and lasting appeal. From the golden age of Hindi cinema to the multilingual world of Indian films, she's worked across Hindi, Tamil, Telugu, and Marathi industries, balancing critical acclaim with commercial success. Sonali has collaborated with an enviable list of directors, from authors like Mani Ratnam to the masters of Masala, and starred opposite leading men like Amir Khan, Salman Khan, Shah Rukh Khan, and Ajay Devgan. Whether playing the spirited love interest or the emotional anchor, she brought sincerity that transcended screen time. Even after stepping back at her peak, she never disappeared. Her return via digital platforms and television has only cemented her relevance. After bravely facing a life threatening cancer diagnosis, Sonali has re emerged, not just as a survivor but as a symbol of resilience and reinvention. Today, she isn't just red hot, she's blazing with a strength and spirit that define true icon status. You took a break, had a baby, then you came back and did television. Did you feel any kind of difference in the mediums? Yes, there's a difference. But being in front of the camera is still just that, being in front of the camera. There's a shared energy. Funny you mentioned television. I'd done it before my baby, after Sarfarosh and Hum Saath Saath Hain, hosting Kya Masti Kya Dhoom, a children's talent show, back when TV wasn't seen as respectable. People wondered, has she lost it? Only Mr. Bachchan was on TV then with KBC. Despite working with top actors and having hits, things weren't really moving forward. Some of that was down to my choices. I was dating Goldie then and he said TV will explode. I believed him. Films took years, payments were slow, and ads were rare. I never planned to retire, but I wanted stability. The offers weren't evolving, so I took the leap and I'm glad I did. Go on. After Kya Masti Kya Dhoom, I married and began working in Tamil and Telugu films, what's now called pan Indian cinema, while continuing in Hindi films. I only truly paused during pregnancy. While expecting Ranveer, I did theatre, Aapki Sonia, a sequel to Tumhari Amrita, with Farooq Sheikh, whom I deeply miss. Stepping into a role Shabana ji had done was a risk, but I thought, they already say I can't act, so why not? Theatre improved my acting and I performed till I was 8.5 months pregnant. Eventually, I realized I crave variety more than repeating lines with nuance. Theatre is beautiful, but I wanted change. My only real break was until Ranveer turned 2. Since then, I've kept working, Indian Idol, India's Got Talent, and more. I've never taken a traditional break, though it's been a while since fiction. When you experience something intense, how do you unwind? Before the broken news, I took on a brilliant 6 month limited series, Ajib Dastan Hai Ye by Ekta Kapoor. It aired well before OTT platforms and my cancer diagnosis. The role was so emotionally intense that I left the set feeling lightheaded. It was cathartic. I've realized that living such deep emotions on screen is a release. I can embody someone else's turmoil without real life fallout. If I'm upset, say after an argument with my mother, I channel that energy into a scene and return home calmer. For me, intense scenes are almost therapeutic. What did you discover about yourself by working with people you've never worked with before? How did it change you as a person? I was quite nervous about the broken news. Everything felt unfamiliar. Even the silence of the camera unsettled me. I was used to clicks, light adjustments, and the bustle of a noisy set. I had to find my rhythm all over again. But once I did, it was wonderful. At first, it was disorienting, but rediscovering that rhythm felt fantastic. Back then, we did everything ourselves. No stylists, no PR teams. Now, every department has its own expert, which has its pros and cons. Too many minuses. No, that's what you'd say. I'd say there are far more pluses now. Earlier, as an actor, you handled everything yourself. Now, I can switch off knowing someone else manages it, and that's a huge relief. You don't need 10 people, but even one dedicated person makes all the difference. I've always been professional, no family managing things, just me. I don't have an entourage, only a few people, and that's enough. The broken news was different. I just recovered from a debilitating illness. Physically weak, I wasn't sure I could handle it. As I got stronger, I noticed brain fog and memory lapses. Back then, we got lines on the set with fading light and we delivered. Now, I panicked that I'd forget lines, but my director reassured me, saying no one gets it instantly and everyone had the script earlier. That was a turning point. I finally had the luxury to prepare, which I'd never had before. Understanding the character arc beforehand and then performing felt joyful and freeing. A completely different experience I truly loved. What would be your advice finally to women straddling home and career? I don't think I'm the right person to give advice on this, because I've had the luxury to choose not to work when my child needed me. Most women in our country don't have that choice, they juggle homework and childcare. I honestly don't know how they manage. I wouldn't advise on something I haven't lived. But I do remember something my mother, a housewife, told her three daughters no matter how rich her husband is, her daughters wouldn't marry until they were financially independent. I didn't understand it then, but now I see how important it is. Financial independence is key because it gives you the freedom to make your own choices. That's all I can say. Your world was one without social media. Did you like it that way, or do you feel pressured now to share certain content or views? Are there things you feel you have to do just for the sake of it? Honestly, I avoided social media for the longest time. Then my team said, there are so many fake accounts and rubbish going around, people actually believe it. So I needed an official, verified account that people could trust. Without that, all sorts of nonsense spread. For a while, I wondered if being on social media even mattered. But then I realized that if you're reinventing yourself, you have to adapt. As an actor, especially with age, reinvention is necessary. I've never really been out of the limelight in 30 years, which is quite something. Staying relevant for so long is an achievement, and adapting to social media is part of that. Everyone does it differently. For me, social media is a tool. I run Sonali's book club there and I choose to focus on the positive side. I refuse to engage in negativity and try my best to use it constructively. Everyone is a brand and making great money. What else has changed since the 90s? The money, definitely. Today, people earn so much faster that thinking about a legacy isn't as urgent as before. Back then, legacy was tied to lasting long enough to make that kind of money. Is that a good thing? I don't know. It really depends on what the person wants. Not every actor aims to leave a legacy or is even capable of it. Everyone's desires are different, so there's no right or wrong. Change is constant, and if you can't adapt, you're left behind. I'm quite comfortable with adapting. Was there much more patriarchy and nepotism at play in the 90s than now? I've said many times that this profession wasn't my choice. It happened by accident. When I started, I was so raw and unprepared. I'd never really seen films or read magazines, so I was naive and underexposed. It took me years to understand that film is a visual medium, and if I have the looks, that's part of it. I even felt guilty, thinking it was all because of my looks and not talent. I wasn't a trained dancer and struggled a lot. I used to have nightmares about dancing and was often criticized on the set. But eventually, I realized dance is an expression, just like acting. I'm not a background dancer. I'm an actor, and I express myself in my own way. Once I accepted that, my dancing improved. Regarding roles, many were given to people not just because of connections but also because of relationships. The underworld's influence was strong then. I lost many films because I refused to attend certain parties. Looking back, I marvel at my own courage. It came from my upbringing. My parents never accepted anything wrong. That rigid upbringing kept me on the right path. I was always worried about disappointing my mother or father, which stopped me from getting into trouble. I appreciate that now. When you dated Goldie, everything was hush hush. Was it tough for him because he was just starting off? My father in law, a producer, passed away when Goldie was in his teens. Shrishti and Goldie, as the elder siblings, had to grow up overnight. They had no choice. There was a film to finish and no one asked what they wanted to do. Back then, the industry wasn't like today. Producers often put their homes up as collateral, so if a film failed, the house was at risk. He had to start working at 17, there was simply no option. We both started young, and maybe that's how we bonded. We were a bit more grown up early on. To deal with a director, producer whose career is not doing well, the onus falls on the wife who is also a known celebrity. How did you deal with all of that? It was very hard. Like you said, the failures were so public. At that time, having hoardings plastered with your flops was a big deal. It takes a very strong person to face that, and that's something Goldie truly is strong. Life teaches you resilience in its own way. Both of us have had our share of lows, and rather than say we reinvented ourselves, I'd say we rebuilt. And rebuilding is exhausting. There were moments when I thought, I can't do this anymore. But having each other made it easier. If we'd had to do it alone, it would have been far more difficult. It's not just about being husband and wife, it's about having a support system. Whether that's your partner, your closest friends, or your family, just having someone to lean on makes all the difference. That's what helped us survive the odds. No relationship is without its ups and downs. One pact we made early on was never to sleep over a fight. No stewing over things all night, no waking up irritable and carrying it forward. Whatever it is, we talk it through, even if it takes longer, so we wake up fresh the next day. But perhaps the biggest strength of our relationship is that we are best friends first. That friendship created respect. And as you grow older, you realize that kind of love, the one built on respect and deep friendship, is more enduring than the infatuation of youth. That's the kind of love that lasts. When we were growing up, cancer was a forbidden thing. We were not supposed to talk about it. It was brushed under the carpet. If there's one thing I'll take credit for, it's this: over the last 6 years, I've helped bring cancer and the conversation around it to the forefront. Because when it happened to me, no one was talking about it. When I first put that post out, announcing my diagnosis and taking time off, I was fully prepared to shut down social media, disappear for a while, and figure things out. But the response was overwhelming. People reached out from everywhere, sharing their stories, their fears, their support. And I couldn't help but wonder, why have we made this such a taboo? Why is there shame attached to illness? Why do people feel the need to hide it? And then it hits you. It's because society often treats illness, especially cancer, like something to be whispered about, as if it reflects poorly on you. But why? It's not something I caused. It happened to me. That's when I knew I had to speak up. I had to share my journey. Even when we considered wrapping up the documentation of my treatment, I remember telling my team, no, this story needs to continue. But with two conditions: one, I wouldn't cry through it. I wasn't going to be a victim, because that's not who I am. Two, I wouldn't portray it in a way that focused only on the graphic, painful parts. Everyone already knows cancer is ugly. What I wanted to show was the strength, the resilience, the learning. Of course, there were trolls. People who said, oh, she's doing this for publicity. I was even asked that to my face. And yes, it did hurt. But then Goldie sent me a photo, an article showing that, since I began speaking openly, the rate of cancer testing had gone up significantly. And that was all the validation I needed. Even today, when I meet people, they tell me, you kept saying early detection saves lives. That's the message I kept repeating, and I'll keep repeating it. Because when caught early, cancer doesn't have to be the monster we think it is. Did you have to seek therapy post surgery and post chemotherapy? I genuinely believe many would benefit from therapy. Sometimes, life simply feels too much. And it's perfectly okay to say, something's not right. I'm not coping. I need help. There's no shame in that. Reaching out is a strength. For me, I drew the line at medication. After everything I'd already taken for my treatment, I just couldn't add more. I wanted a more holistic route, and I found it in ways I hadn't expected. Therapy helped, but so did other things. Like my book club. That, too, became a kind of therapy. The community was so warm and thoughtful. I remember once, we picked a Korean novel. It was dark, quite heavy, and I just couldn't get through it. I wasn't in the headspace for it. The members reached out and said, Mom, maybe skip this one. We'll read it and discuss it. You don't need to go through it right now. That kind of care. It stayed with me. Sometimes, healing is simply knowing someone is holding space for you. That's what I've come to understand. Healing doesn't always look the way we expect it to. It can be quiet. It can be a conversation, a shared story, or even a reading community gently nudging you toward comfort. Even the way we eat became part of the healing. I realized one size doesn't fit all. Each of us is built differently. So what works for one might not work for another. Learning to listen to my body, to understand what it needs, not what someone else tells it should need, was a huge shift. Through all this, I've learned that healing isn't linear. It's layered, deeply personal, and often shows up in places you least expect.